The Nnamdi Madubuike injury situation went from bad to worse as John Harbaugh officially announced a devastating update. We talk about that and so much more coming up on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day, or maybe your second listen if you listened to our morning episode talking about Ravens leaders being exposed in a pretty shocking and wild report. But we're here diving into the Nnamdi Madubuike injury situation as for the Ravens, John Harbaugh announced a pretty devastating update. So thank you to all the everydayers out there, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We bring you 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, again, wish we were talking under better circumstances. I like doing these kind of mid-afternoon check-ins when there's news, but I wish it was better news. And this is pretty devastating when it comes down to it. We heard on Saturday that the Ravens had placed Nnamdi Madubuike on injured reserve, and we did a live for that show and that news, and we had talked about how we didn't really know what the long-term outcome of that would be. Was it short-term IR? Was it longer-term IR? Is he done for the season? Is it a career anything? Well, John Harbaugh, he gave us an update that I don't think anybody wanted to hear, and it is that Nnamdi Madubuike will officially be out for the season. He's done for the year. He even went a step further and said that essentially Nnamdi on his own time would kind of, I guess, reveal what it means for his career, which again, you never want to hear. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good, right? When you hear that and say, well, he's out for the year, but also, essentially Harbaugh didn't want to comment on that aspect of it. It's really hard to hear, right? It's really hard to hear when, not just from obviously we'll get into the football perspective of everything because, it's going to impact the team in a pretty big way. But, Harbaugh saying that for questions about whether that injury could jeopardize his career, those questions are for Madubuike to address. I mean, you just think about the human in the first place, right? Madubuike, the human, and how horrible neck injuries can be from that level. Like, obviously it's a huge loss on the football field, but depending on the severity and what the injury is, it could impact Madubuike's life. And, the Ravens have unfortunately had to go through something like this before with Zach Orr, and that injury, like his Orr situation, cut a very promising career short. I would hate for it to do the same to Madubuike. And again, we don't know the answer to that question, right? That was not in the announcement. The announcement was that Madubuike is going to be 100% out for the season-ending IR. And, from a football perspective, this is a Ravens defense that is already just struggling, right? Just absolutely struggling. And from that perspective of things, not just Madubuike, Broderick Washington, he'll be on the short-term IR, John Harbaugh announced. But it just keeps getting worse. I mean, you think things are bad, you think things are going wrong, and then just every single piece of news that comes out, every single report, every single think piece or topic of conversation on a show is just piling on and on and on and on. And we also got some other injury updates that are more of the breaking variety. We'll talk about a little bit in the second part of the show. Do some updates on guys like Marlon, Humphrey, and Roquan Smith as the defense just continues to grow weaker here. But the Ravens are in a really bad spot on the defensive line because, look, it's one thing to replace a player of Nnamdi Madubuike's caliber, right? That's one thing. I'm not saying they can't do it, but you would have to go out there and probably trade for a Dexter Lawrence or Quinnen Williams or Jeffrey Simmons to fill that void and fill that role. The Ravens might need to do that even when Madubuike was healthy, because that's the thing with the defense, right? It's really unfortunate in the fact that, even with Madubuike out there, the defense wasn't playing well. Like, it just is a fact. And Madubuike, he had 2 sacks through 2 games. His pressure rates are great. And we read this out on the show on Saturday, and we talked about Madubuike just being put on IR in the first place. But Jonas Shaffer of the Baltimore Banner, he ended up reporting just a couple stats about Madubuike on the field versus off the field and how the Ravens defense, performed in those moments. And it's a pretty big shift. Jonas' stats here. So the Ravens with Madubuike on the field, 4.3 yards per carry allowed and a 36.8% pressure rate. With Madubuike off the field, 6.3 yards per carry and 27.9% pressure rate. So they're allowing, at least at the time, this was before week 4 happened. So I'm sure those numbers are, they're changed now. But through 3 weeks, it was the Ravens were allowing 2 more yards per carry with Madubuike off the field, and their pressure rate was down about 9%. And those are pretty big numbers and pretty big shifts. And so now you're in a situation where, yes, Washington is also down. He's going to be, again, out for the 4 weeks at least. That's the short-term IR. But, Travis Jones is not healthy right now. And, John Jenkins is playing really hard and, honestly playing a lot better than I expected. He's exceeded all expectations for me. He essentially right now is your D-line. Like Aeneas Peebles is going to have to step up. They signed Brent Urban to the active roster. We can actually, let's do some live research here. Available free agent defensive linemen. Let's see what we got here. Best available free agents. This was updated, I believe, 2 days ago. So this is pretty up to date if I'm not mistaken. Christian Wilkins is the big one, obviously. The Ravens could choose to sign him. I don't know how his recovery from the foot injury is going. Obviously, there was all the locker room stuff with him too. The Ravens would deem him a fit for their culture. I'm not sure what that looks like, but Christian Wilkins is pretty by far and away the top defensive lineman here that you would get is close to Madubuike. If he's healthy and everything checks out, that's about as close as you can probably get to Madubuike, even though I think Madubuike is better than Christian Wilkins. Other than that, though, there really aren't a lot of options. I mean, Jeremiah Ledbetter, Linval Joseph, like those are the types of players. And it's specific, right? Like you don't want to sign a nose tackle to come in and replace Nnamdi Madubuike, right? You want to sign someone who's like a hybrid guy, pass rush specialist. Like that's where I think a trade would probably come into, more fruition if they were to make that move. But, it's still kind of early in the season. I know there are trades being made. I think Cam Robinson was traded from the Texans to the Browns today. So moves are happening, but, is the move that you make going to move the needle? Because that's what I say about moves all the time. Is the move going to move a needle for you? The Ravens right now, they need to move a needle and move it fast, right? This was not the live show, honestly, I was expecting to do today. And I didn't know anything. Like, I don't know anything about the situation, but I was expecting maybe a coaching change, not Harbaugh, but maybe a coordinator or a position coach or whatnot. That did not happen today, obviously. It was this news that we're reacting to right now. But some change has to happen. We'll kind of get to that a little bit more as the show goes on. But at this point, like, can you even recover from kind of what has transpired so far over the first 4 weeks and losing a player like Nnamdi for the season? And look, despite the fact that Roquan hasn't played well this season and Marlon hasn't played well this season, and we'll get into those guys a little bit more in a few minutes, as I mentioned, I mean, it's still like your defense is depleted. And for a Ravens team that they do not like to play rookies, genuinely, like during the early parts of the season, unless like a Malachi, for example, like there's a clear path. Patrick Queen, for example, was another one of those guys. Clear path to playing time, first round pick. Like they don't like playing rookies over veterans early in the season. Now guys earn spots and guys step up, but now you're relying on Teddy Buchanan, Aeneas Peebles, Malachi himself, Mike Green, like all of these rookies and inexperience, like Keon Martin playing in the slot for Marlon as the game went on. Right? Those are guys that have inexperience. And I don't care, like, again, with the Chiefs, how bad that offense was going into the game. Something was going to have to give. It was the Ravens defense versus the Chiefs offense, two underachieving units, the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. And the Chiefs offense, that Ravens defense made that Chiefs offense look like it was the best offense in the league. One punt all game. And yeah, having Nnamdi out there would be a huge difference maker. Travis Jones out there, Van Noy, like everybody. The Ravens are decimated defensively injury-wise right now. Like there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But, it's devastating. And I still come back to thinking of Nnamdi as a human and a person and kind of what he's going through. Zach Orr said he was crushed to see what Nnamdi was going through. And, he obviously has unfortunate firsthand experience with that. But he's someone that I just you're in a really tough spot now if you're the Ravens, and you have to recover from this quickly because starting the season 1-4, I believe I still have it pulled up here. I do. Since 1970, this was in 2023, so it doesn't include last year's stats, but since 2023, only 9.8% of teams losing 2 games that they make the playoffs after 0-2 starts. Well, the Ravens were in that situation last year. This year, they're in a 1-3 situation. They could be 1-4. And if they're 1-4, going back to 1970 from 2023, 253 teams have opened the season at 1-4. Only 15% of those teams ended up making the playoffs. The last one being Washington as of 2023 in 2020. I don't have the updated numbers for 2024 and 2024. Yeah. So you need to recover here fast because while I thought the run defense honestly was okay against the Chiefs, awful against the Lions, pass defense got absolutely torched, and they need it fast, a change fast. But we're gonna have to see because Nnamdi, not the only injury update we've gotten on the Ravens today. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll be diving into again guys like Marlon, Humphrey, Roquan Smith. I know they're not an official update on Lamar Jackson, but I know some stuff has come out about what happened there. So be sure to stay tuned. We have plenty coming your way on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make a lineup in under a minute. My favorite part, PrizePicks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. It's also really fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. And the show is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra, Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. And Go Long, it combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula. The effects can last up to 36 hours, and the process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you on this Monday edition of the show. Not so Victory Monday and Instant Reaction Live edition here. We did our episode this morning on Locked On Ravens, talked about the Ravens leaders being exposed in a pretty crazy report. So if you haven't checked that show out from this morning, be sure you do so. I know, just this craziness going on right now with the Ravens, and I appreciate everybody for taking some time out of their day to spend it with me here on Locked On Ravens. And I know it can be tough, especially after losses, right, to tune in. Losses are tough, but we do bring you 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content, regardless, win, lose, tie. I do not like ties. We actually got one last night in that Packers and Cowboys game, which was it makes me shiver. I don't like it. But you can follow us here on Locked On Ravens in video form or audio form. On the video side of things, we actually just hit 15,000 subscribers. Actually, we're almost at 15,100 now. So, a lot of people who care about this team tuning in and want them to get better, want them to get right, and just want to see change, I think. So appreciate everybody for the support in video form and in audio form. That community is growing. It's such a rapid pace. Same show, both audio and video, 5 days a week, again, daily Ravens coverage and content. But let's dive into some other injury notes and news for the Ravens here, because it wasn't just the devastating Nnamdi Madubuike injury news, which is really tough at this point. Now you have Roquan Smith, Ian Rappaport reporting that he was diagnosed with a grade 2 hamstring strain, and he'll miss a few weeks. The initial report was about Marlon Humphrey from Ian a little earlier in the day. So Marlon was ruled out with a calf injury. We know that. but he's expected to miss a couple weeks with that injury. Now, Ian reporting this, it's not as bad as it could have been, but all of Baltimore's soft tissue injuries, appear to be week to week, and he clarifies that means not major. So again, like, I want to reiterate this. Marlon has not played well this season. Roquan has not played well this season, save for, the Cleveland game. There's still, in my opinion, better options. And maybe, look, a guy proves me wrong, but right now, like, losing Roquan and Marlon, despite them not playing well, that's still really tough because if anything, you value the experience they have. And even though that's not translating onto the field, now you're going to rely on a bunch of rookies to kind of go in there and get the job done. That's tough. Now, honestly, what I will say also is that the bye week comes at a very opportune time for them now. And we kind of said that last year. It was kind of the same conversation where the bye week was super late last year. I remember I was on here and I was like, man, this is so late. This is so awful. Like, come on, why? And then it came when it did. The Ravens just kind of reeling through their couple games before the bye week. And hey, it came at a perfect time. Seems like the bye week will come at a perfect time this time around. Week 7 is when they'll have it. So they still have 2 more games to go. They probably need it. Like, if Roquan, Marlon, maybe even Lamar, we don't know the full extent of that yet. But if those guys do have to miss a couple weeks with those injuries, then that bye week probably helps out a lot, right? And, there are a bit of differences in terms of what Roquan and Marlon versus what rookies bring to the table. Obviously, I mentioned the experience for Roquan and Marlon, which, they have over the rookies. I think the rookies will be eager to prove themselves. And, I know there's been effort questions about a lot of players on that defense. Maybe those rookies come in and, give them energy and, play 1,010% every single snap. And that helps everything, which I think that it could. I think the energy will be good and hopefully infectious from those rookies coming in. Actually, I see Cam actually said that. I didn't even look at the chat. I saw Cam said that exact thing here, saying Marlon and Roquan being taken out is good. Put hungry rookies in who want to steal jobs, make the defense actually play hard. Same wavelength, Cam. Same wavelength. So again, like, I think they will miss the experience. Like, at the end of the day, I'd probably want Marlon and Roquan out there. Like, I value the experience, but there are still positives to, letting those guys rest and getting the rookies in there. The problem would be, like we saw a play yesterday where Keon Martin didn't account for Isaiah Pacheco out of the backfield and was wide open for a touchdown, right? Like, those are the types of things that you need to weigh against each other. And it's okay. Like, look, I get it. Like, Roquan has, again, been bad this year. So was Marlon. They have not played up to their standard. Actually we do the Locked On Ravens watch alongs. And actually, I'll look it up again right now. Roquan Smith's contract real quick, and also do Marlon's, because that was a big topic of conversation during the game. Because again, like, the problem is, even when these veterans and stars are healthy, the Ravens defense is not playing well. Like, it's not just, oh man, the Ravens played really well when Nnamdi was in there, or played really well when Roquan and Marlon was in there. No, they weren't good. And that wasn't necessarily Nnamdi's fault. Like, Nnamdi played well. Roquan and Marlon, on the other hand, not so much. But so Roquan's deal, they have a potential out next season if they wanted it. They did the whole restructure thing with him. He has a $32 million cap hit next year, $25 million dead cap hit. So you'd save about $8 million if you were to cut Roquan after next season. If you waited until 2027, you would save $20 million because that dead cap hit goes down to $12 million. So it'd be $8 million if he was cut this upcoming offseason, and $20 million if he was cut after next offseason or during next offseason. I'll tell you something right now. He is not making it to 2027. They will either restructure or release him before 2027. They're not, that's too many cap savings. He's going to have that 32 million number is huge for the next 2 seasons. He hasn't had a cap hit. His cap hit this year is 15. And again, they moved some money around, but even still, Marlon has void years on his deal. So that's going to be interesting. If they were to release him this upcoming year is the last year of his contract, like next year, 2026, they could save again, like $8 million if they were to, maybe it's about $7 million if they released him before 2026. And then he has the 3 void years tacked on to the end of his deal there. So they're going to have to make decisions. Like, again, the reason why it's so important for this Ravens team to win now, why all offseason I was talking about how important this was, or Super Bowl or bust, contrary to what John Harbaugh believes. Obviously, he clearly doesn't think that. But, at this point, we'll talk about a lot of John Harbaugh's comments more on tomorrow's show. I still have to sift through them, but I know there were some pretty wild things. The Nnamdi thing was one thing, but I know we had conversations on Todd Monken, Zach Orr, tape, whatnot. So I'll sift through those and we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. But for Harbaugh, it's like that kind of messaging. And that kind of takes us to the show we did this morning on the leadership and some of the leaders getting exposed in that article. Gianna Hahn of the Baltimore Banner, she wrote that. And it's just like, what's going on with this team right now? Because the message that I had gotten, and maybe if people are live in the chat or if you're watching or listening after the fact, want to comment or send me a message or whatnot, the consensus was that going into this game, it felt like, obviously Harbaugh's been his own separate conversation, but it felt like the defense was like the big thing that people were worried about. And then coming out of the Kansas City game, everyone was kind of just like, yeah, okay, it's a lot more than the defense. There's like a cultural issue here for the Ravens that needs to be fixed and fixed quickly. Because you can tell on the sideline, right? Like everybody's dejected. Every single camera cut, it was torture yesterday, watching every single camera cut to the Ravens sideline be of an injured player or someone who's just distraught and dejected out of their mind. Like it's torture to watch that, because this team, the reason that it's so fun to watch them play, especially in this Lamar Jackson era, is that like they usually have fun. Like they're having fun, they're joking around, and that obviously comes with a lot of dominating wins. But 1-3 in the Lamar Jackson era is unprecedented territory. The update that we got from Mike Florio about Lamar was the fact that, he felt a grab at the hamstring, I guess. So we'll see. He was kind of, and I think, who was it? Jeff Darlington. I think he was the one. I'm going to try to pull it up here. Jeff Darlington was the one that reported that he saw Lamar kind of slowly limp to the team buses after the game. Because I know Harbaugh commented on Lamar's injury and that he couldn't have gone back in the game if he wanted to, essentially. And, the reports coming out of it, yeah, he was limping after the game to the locker room, limping to the buses. I know there was a lot of conversation. Did Lamar quit on the team? And I always thought that was, I wasn't going to jump to that conclusion. I would have needed to see evidence. I didn't think Lamar did quit on the team, and I would have needed to see a lot of evidence to suggest that he would. That's just not who Lamar is. So it was clearly more than a precautionary thing, Jeff Darlington said. And like, again, if Lamar falls into the Ian Rappaport report of those soft tissue injuries are nothing major, but are going to maybe take a couple of weeks, that means Lamar Jackson might have to miss time up until the bye or after the bye. And I'll tell you right now, I have zero confidence in the Ravens winning a game with Cooper Rush. Like zero. The Texans are a team that I think maybe like I can see pathways where they can squeak that one out, because I think it was Primetime who said the comment. The Texans have the worst O-line in the league. If the D-line can't feast in this game, there's no hope. Yeah, like even with Nnamdi and Broderick out, if Travis is able to come back, maybe Kyle Van Noy is able to come back, right? Like you have to get pressure on CJ. I agree. If you don't get pressure on CJ Stroud in this game, there's no hope for you as a pass rush. That's it. That's it for you. So like maybe there's a situation where the Ravens win that game with Cooper Rush, but Cooper Rush showed me nothing. I actually have to go look. I haven't looked in a couple hours, but that situation with Cooper Rush throwing the ball out of bounds on 4th down, kind of indicative of the mindset going on right now. And I didn't even give you guys a chance to catch the ball from your own 10-yard line, nonetheless. So a lot of rough situations going on right now for the Ravens, and it's difficult because it just seems like the conversation for so many years was that this Ravens team beats themselves, which has been true. It still is true. But over these last 2 weeks, we have seen the Ravens just get absolutely punked by teams that you're going to probably be facing in January and February, assuming you make it there. If they play like this, they're not sniffing the playoffs. But, the season is not over. I know it's not what people want to hear, but it is over if they keep playing like this. And obviously the injury situation, that's a different conversation as well. But coming up in the final part of the show, we'll dive a little bit more into what's next for Baltimore, where they go from here, what moves they should be making, or what the messaging should be, and what it is with this Ravens team. So be sure to stay tuned. We have a lot coming your way on this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. You got the big taste in a tiny shot. You can take it anywhere. You get that boost when you need it. Now, my favorite flavor, I reach for it. It's berry, because It's refreshing, gives me that quick lift before a busy day as well. And for me, I also reach for 5-hour energy because the portability is great, the size as well, but how fast you actually feel it in the effects. And plus the sugar-free aspect of it, I love that it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. You got the NFL season. It is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Take a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays. I've tried player props and even followed the live lines that are in the games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Now, the Ravens, they have to move on quickly from that from that Chiefs game. They're going to play the Texans in week number 5. The Texans coming to Baltimore. Now, right now, the Ravens are 3.5 home favorites, 3.5-point home favorites in this game on FanDuel. So they need this win in the worst way right now. It'd go a long way. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you on the show, diving into, of course, the devastating update from John Harbaugh on Nnamdi Madubuike, some other Ravens injury news, Roquan Smith, Marlon, Humphrey, Lamar Jackson, and just talking about where this team needs to go from here. And we'll talk about that right now. Again, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and audio form. I say it all the time, but we have so many amazing communities here. We have Locked On Ravens watch-alongs during games. You can tune in, hear the Ravens perspective. We react to every single play. We got the instant reaction shows, Locked On Ravens squad shows. That happens twice a week, Wednesdays at 7:30, as well as after games. So we got you covered here, video form, audio form. You can also follow me on social media, CashRecord34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. Also, be sure to tell a friend and tell a family member if they want some daily Ravens coverage. We have them covered, just like we have you covered on Locked On Ravens. Now, the big question of the day is, where do the Ravens go from here? What do they do? What moves do they make? There are a lot of answers to that question. I think the one that a lot of people are looking at is Zach Orr. You know, he's someone that is not coached well. The defense is bad, and that's putting it very nicely. The thing with Zach Orr is, like, one, we know the players like him. We know the organization likes him. He's not causing drama. He's going out there, he's trying to do his job. Now, you know, is he doing his job effectively? Clearly no. He has potential, but the problem is that the Ravens cannot wait for that potential, because they essentially have been waiting a year plus for Zach Orr to finally put it together without having major changes. All right, that's the key, without having major changes. Because we saw at the beginning of last season, yes, that was Zach Orr's first full season. It was the first time calling plays. Like, it was always going to take some time to adjust to being a play caller, especially at the NFL level. They had wild schedule with the Chiefs in week 1 last year, the Cowboys, the Bills in week 4. Like, it was always going to be an adjustment. But then the adjustment didn't come as quickly as people thought. And so the Ravens had to make sweeping and again, like, players also, and that's why I always say it's not always on one person, because we know Marcus Williams did nothing to help. We know Brandon Stevens did nothing to help. We know Eddie Jackson did nothing to help. Like, all of that did not help Zach Orr. But they had to make all those changes. And then it worked. Like, Zach Orr figured it out. They brought in Dean Pease to help him out a little bit. That was fine. Defense, they became the best unit in football after they made those changes. But now you're essentially in your second straight season in a Super Bowl window where you have to, like, kind of wait for the spark to fly. You got to wait for the defense to get it together. And so, look, it's not about Zach Orr and, like, his potential or his football IQ or, like, who he is or any of that. It's just that, in my opinion, I'm shocked I'm even taking this stance, because I was not, like, last week, if you heard me on the show, I was like, John Harbaugh, no Shields, and I still believe that. But this comes in my mindset that I just don't think the Ravens will move on from John Harbaugh during the year. If you know me, if you've been listening to the show, if you're an everydayer, you know my stance on John Harbaugh and his season this year. This is it. If there's another disappointing exit, wild card, divisional, if they don't even make the playoffs, whatever it may be, even maybe AFC Championship at this point falls in this category. I don't know. But if there's another disappointing exit, I do not think John Harbaugh is the coach of the Ravens next season. But during the year, I just do not think that they will move on. I just don't. So when you need to make a big change, when you need something to happen, when a message needs to be sent, I thought it was going to be Zach Orr. I didn't know anything, but I thought, hey, pieces, maybe this game against Kansas City being the way that it was, maybe that's what happens. Because you could make personnel changes. Like, I guess they're kind of forced into those by the injuries this year. And this is why every year is so important too, by the way. Right? This is why every year is so important. Because the Ravens, I said this on the Instant Reaction show, I said it on the Watch Along, even the Squad show, you had three opportunities, golden ones, to win a Super Bowl since Lamar Jackson has been inserted as a starting quarterback. 2019 was an amazing chance. They kind of overachieved that season, but even still, that was the best team in football, and they lose to a 6 seed in the divisional round. 2023, Lamar's second MVP season. That team the defense was historic, literal historic levels of great play by that defense. The offense was humming, and then they can't make it to the Super Bowl. They fall short in the AFC Championship game. Then even last year, right? Last year, they went through their struggles in the first half. We talked about that defensively, but then they got it together. And going into the playoffs, they looked like one of the best teams in football. They might have been the best team in football heading into the playoffs last year in terms of play. But then they can't get the job done against the Bills, and their season falls short again. 2023 and 2024 were two of the healthiest seasons the Ravens have had, maybe in their history. I mean, they got extremely lucky, and maybe luck's not the word, but they were very fortunate to have the health that they did, considering the sport and the game that football is. Barely any key contributors were placed on injured reserve season ender-wise. I know in 2023, guys missed a lot of 2 weeks here, a month there, came back. But, now you're kind of with Nnamdi gone and, other guys kind of missing a couple weeks here and there. You kind of have to understand that, teams go through injury seasons like this. And I think that everybody here understands that, being that this Ravens team has been, they've had a lot of injured seasons that have derailed years, injuries that have derailed seasons. So I think that, if there is a fan base that understands it, it is the Ravens fan base who has been watching this team for years. I watched this team 2014. I'll always remember 2014. I say it all the time on this show. I'm so mad they didn't win the Super Bowl that season. Why didn't they win the Super Bowl that season? Looked like they had all the makings of getting Joe a second ring. Well, they were throwing you and I out there at cornerback by the time they got to the divisional round. They blew 2 14-point leads, and the rest is history there. I guess that's kind of funny to think about, knowing that one of the conversations around the Ravens right now is blowing leads and kind of going back and looking at them blowing 2 14-point leads against the Patriots. And I think the problem with a guy like Zach Orr is, look, he just needs more time, right? He does, but the Ravens don't have more time. They don't. I'm still holding firm on this. On paper, this is the best roster in football. Now, what does it look like now? A lot of injured guys. Not the best anymore, but it was. You can't waste opportunities like that. And, the football injury gods, they had maybe other plans this year for the Ravens. I don't know. But that doesn't make the season any less of a disappointment so far. You can also add context to the games, because I want to say this. I want to reiterate it. It's not that the Ravens are losing to good teams. It's not. Buffalo's a good team. Lions are a good team. Kansas City's a good team. You tell me the Ravens would go 1-3 in their first 4 weeks before the season started, and the 3 losses were to those teams, I would have said, dang, that stinks. You really got to tighten up and get back on track. But as long as they played them competitively and, they played up to their competition and there are a lot of good things to take away, it makes sense, because the Ravens are a good team, but so are those other teams. It's how they're losing the games. Buffalo in week 1, the comeback. Lions out physically in you in the second half. Obviously, Kansas City, just no mercy there from Kansas City. But the crazy part is, they've had opportunities. The Ravens are a very momentum-based team. I've said that a lot here, right? A very momentum-based team. You need a lot of things to go right, it feels like, if you're the Ravens right now. Because we know, hey, if they get momentum, they are absolutely running you over. 38-6, 40-10, 56-30. They are balling out. But it seems like when something goes a little bit wrong, maybe a turnover, maybe a big stop by the opponent, maybe a big offensive drive, it feels like things just kind of unravel. That's what happened in this game. Ravens had an opportunity to go up 14-3 in this game. 1st and 10, they were what Kansas City's 32-37. They were in Kansas City territory. Very worst, we probably go up 10-3 there. That'd be nice. Then Lamar Jackson obviously throws the interception to intended for Mark Andrews, and that's kind of where it all went south. So Ravens have a lot of soul searching to do. They got to pick up winning against the Texans 1-4. You do not want to be there. Injuries are going to make it tough. Cooper Rush plays. I don't have a lot of confidence. So, man, very interesting times ahead for this Baltimore Ravens team. That's all I have for you here today, though, on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much again for tuning in to the show. If you haven't checked out this morning's episode, be sure you do that. We'll have another episode tomorrow, obviously, as well, talking about John Harbaugh's comments about Todd Monken and Zach Orr. I think they're very telling, so got to sift through them a little bit here. But be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I will see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.